Hey, this is Ralph, and in this video we're going to finish up working on this small portion of the Porsche USA menu. So we're just tinkering with these 6 cars right up here at the top. Where we left off in the previous video was getting the structure for those anchor tags right in there, and we've got the labels that can be read obviously for the various models of car. But we are not done yet. Now, before I turned on the recorder, I did go out and find myself a little sports car icon that I can just use. I just got one. If you can get it to work for one, then you'll be able to get it to work for others over at Icons 8. So I've got that car image, that little picture, saved in my images folder, and it's ready to be used. Okay, so let's head back over to the markup. So I've got this anchor tag here. Now I do have a border on those anchor tags, or probably that's still short-term temporary stuff. We'll get rid of that soon enough so that it closely mimics the actual Porsche site. And let's go ahead and add a few other things on here. For instance, I know that the text decoration will be none. I know the font size seems kind of small. I'm not sure how much. Let's just do font size of 10 points. Let's see how that looks. Still doesn't look too small compared to there, so I'll dial this back. I don't want to make it too small though. 9 points. All right, that's noticeably smaller. Cool. Now I also know that this text is horizontally centered and a little bit past the halfway mark on the button. So text align center is going to take care of the horizontal centering of that text. Now remember, our anchor tags are display inline block, and that allows us to do several things like setting the width and the height and the text alignment and stuff like that. So text align center. Now to get the vertical pushing down of that text, we have a couple of options. Padding top could be a potential, but I'm going to play around with line height. So if I give it a big line height, even though my button is only 90 pixels tall, if I do something like 100 pixels of line height, that'll give the effect of pushing that anchor text down lower. And I think this is an okay method to use because none of these lines of text are multiple lines. They're all single lines of text. I'm not worried about wrapping or going to multiple lines, so I think we're safe doing it that way to create that particular effect there. I might need to push these down a little bit more. I just increased the line height. Let's go ahead and try putting a picture in. Now on my markup, remember I gave a unique class to all of these. I'm going to play around with the Taycan here, so that's class P tag. So I'll come back to that anchor tag in just a moment, but .main nav .p tag. And let's see, I'm going to give it a background image, URL images / and it's my little icons car 8 right there. Before I start to tinker with this background image, I like to see its default look, and there it is. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and manipulate this a little bit. Background repeat, no repeat, background size. Now I know my button is 80 pixels wide. I'm going to make my background size 75 pixels and see how that looks. Now if I just put in that one number, that's going to be the width of my background image, and it'll change height proportionally. In fact, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so that way I can exaggerate the centering. Okay, so there's my little car. And I'm also going to do a background position, and let's see, I want it to be top center. So the car is as high as it can go. Now you notice it's not at the very top, and that's probably because this icon probably has some white boundaries on it. So I'm actually pretty content with the location of those cars within the button, but I do want that text to be just a little bit further down. So I'm going to head it back up to my line height. Let's try something a little bigger, like 120 pixels for line height, and that'll give the effect of pushing that car text. This is looking pretty good to me. I think we're almost done. Now, of course, what I would probably do in real life is I would set the background repeat and the background size and the background position for all of my anchor tags. And in fact, that means I could really take background repeat, take all of those things and put them up here for the anchor tags, and then the specific anchor tags for each car model would get its own background image. So that's a little bit more organized way to write that out. Let's see, I'm going to head up here, .main nav a:hover. Looks like there was just a border bottom. I'll do 4 pixels solid. It was kind of a reddish color, so I don't know, 900. That'll at least give us the taste of how that's going to look. And make sure I'm refreshed. And there we go. So now we're getting that red bottom. Oh, I got to change the text color to red too. So let's do that. Color. There we go. Same shade of red. So now we've got that going. That's pretty good. I think I can get rid of these temporary gray borders. And I do recall from the other one that our header has a thin bottom border. Border bottom. 1 pixel solid. I'll just throw gray in there. So I get a thin border, and of course it's more noticeable on theirs because they have that white up there, and then when I hover over, you can see that thin white border. And then, we see the red border on hover. I think we're in pretty good shape. Let's go ahead and place this nav menu a little bit. Obviously, you can see it's pushed to the right, to make room for that logo over there. And obviously the bottom of the nav is right down there at the bottom. So let's head back to our markup real quick. Should just be the last thing. And I'm going to take this header, and I'm going to put a position relative on it. That's going to make it easy for me to position the main nav. So now I can go to .main nav. Remember, my .main nav is the actual nav tag right down there. So I'm going to do a position absolute. I'm going to go ahead and put a thin border on this, 1 pixel solid blue, just so we can see it. And now you're going to be able to visualize that navigation menu. I'm positioning it absolutely. I'm going to go from the left, 200 pixels, and from the bottom 0 pixels. And I'll be positioning the navigation based on the parent, and I think that gets us roughly where we want to be. And then, of course, we would have a logo over there. So now I can get rid of that blue border that was just there so I can visualize. And that one's gone. And now we've got something a little bit more realistic compared to the Porsche menu. Okay, so that's all it takes. Remember, we went super simple. I didn't even look at the source code over at Porsche to see if I'm doing it the same way they were doing. Probably not. But I think ours looks pretty nicely structured. Now remember, I'm using just a series of anchor tags within a nav. If I want to create that big mega menu drop-down portion, which is pretty cool, I'd probably have to structure this a little bit differently. I might use an unordered list, and that would give me list items. That would allow me to hover over a list item and then manipulate the anchor and then a sub-list item inside. I know that sounds a little bit weird and complicated, but perhaps we'll tackle that going forward. So, for our CIS 195 Web Development 1 class, Week 5, making navigation menus, I think this is a good way to start for many simple horizontal structured navigation menus. Thanks for hanging out with me.